Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by the Lines and Play Picks, coming to you from Oakland, California. As always, Josh Lander, joined by my counterpart on the East Coast, Nate Weitzer. Another great article, as always, for you guys on a pretty small slate tonight, but still some best bets and a bit of strategy from Nate that we'll even go over a little bit on how to bet these really small slates. We only got 3 games tonight to look for. So, Nate, let's jump right into it for Thursday the 21st.
Yeah, I actually like the small slates in terms of narrowing down your options and playing DFS contests, but we'll get to that later on. The 3 games we have are Lakers hovering at -1 at the Bucks right now. We have the Pelicans +6.5 at the Jazz, and the Knicks +5.5 at Warriors. So, Josh, what are you most confident in?
Yeah, the game everyone wants to watch is that Lakers-Bucks game, 2 Titans going up. It was what I think we were all hoping, potentially expecting last year in the finals. So we'll get a little bit of that tonight. And what I've seen from these teams in the past that I'm looking for is the total. Last year, they had 2 games against each other, 215 and 216. Those were the 2 totals. And it really comes down to the style of play. And the Lakers, I think, are going to come out determined tonight after they gave up that just blew that game against the Warriors. Came out of nowhere. I think most of the East Coast went to bed thinking, obviously, the Warriors have this in hand, and woke up to a surprise that the Warriors outscored them by 13 in the fourth quarter using guys like Brad Wanamaker. So, I think there's going to be some of that factor in there. There's no one really just to touch AD on the Bucks. He's averaging a solid career against them in terms of points. He's averaging about 28 points per game. You can get his prop on points at DraftKings tonight for 23.5. I'm looking at the over there, but I do like the under total there, 229.5.
Yeah, no problem with the under there. I think you have to try to back a LeBron James-led team after they lose, especially an older team after they have 2 days off now to kind of recoup and look at what went wrong in that fluke loss to the Warriors. LeBron, these Lakers are 26-6 on the road since the start of last year. They're 7-0 on the road this year. They have the most bench scoring in the league over their last 6. That's 45.8 points per game, and the Bucks are 27th in that department. I think that's where Milwaukee's really struggling, is not their new big 3, if you will, but just filling in those guys around them and trying to find that consistent scoring. That they did lose some key role players last year. And the Bucks have just not been a team to count on against elite opponents. They're 45-6 against teams with losing records since the start of last year, but they're just 20-16 against winning teams, including 3-3 this year. So I think you can feel pretty confident about the Lakers winning this one and coming out motivated. Both their stars potentially hitting their proposition.
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm really liking the fact that, what we know about the Bucks is that their MO on them right now is they can't win the playoffs and simultaneously can't win against good teams. We're saying the same thing there. And I think until Giannis proves that he has some form of mid-range game to take people off of him, he's the best player. He needs the ball in his hands at the end of the games, and it's those crunch times when the defense gets super solidified, that's when we see him struggle. So I still feel really good about the Lakers.
Right. And what's the blueprint the Heat established for stopping Giannis is having athletic, lengthy big men at the back line. That's Bam Adebayo, but the Lakers have Anthony Davis and the best communicator in basketball and Marc Gasol on that back line. I think they can figure out how to force Giannis to try to beat them with jump shots. And that's a good recipe for them. And I think you want to look at Drew Holiday also has a tempting prop there, because if Giannis is not getting those looks, I think Drew will step in, and he's getting 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists on DraftKings. I think he can easily top that. He's been around there or over that in every competitive game the Bucks have had, and obviously you expect this one to be competitive for 4 quarters. Turning to the other game that's going to be on national TV tonight, rematch of the Jazz and Pelicans. The Jazz just smoked the Pelicans on Tuesday. It was not close. The Pelicans, these teams are going in completely opposite directions. The Pelicans are 1-4 with the second worst defensive rating in those 5. The Jazz on a 6-game winning streak with the best net rating in the league during that span. I mean, everything on paper, Josh, says that the Jazz should win this game and win it handily. They hit the most threes per game. The Pelicans give up the most threes per game. Sometimes it's just too simple to count on it. So I think we're a little tentative to go wild on that 6-point spread, but do really like doing a teaser, which, as you guys might know, that can move the line on multiple games. So you could get the Lakers +3, the Jazz -2 if you combine them together, or just taking the Jazz to win on the money line, combining that with one of the other games tonight. I just don't think they lose this game given their overall depth with Joe Ingles back, with Bojan Bogdanovic shooting over 50% from deep. But that Pelicans team can be frisky, and we've seen on the second half of that home and home set, the team that gets smoked comes back with a pretty strong effort.
And that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the fact that I'm actually seeing the trend of the Pellies and their complete spiral over their last 6 or 7 games. And the fact that, they're not getting the offense that they need from the lineups that they're putting in with their big men, with, Steven Adams, Brandon Ingram, and Zion all in one lineup. It doesn't seem like all three of those guys can eat on the same night, right? There's just one of them that puts up good numbers, and Steven Adams does his dirty work. But other than that, they're not getting the offense they need. Eric Bledsoe is reminiscent of his Bucks self, where he just underperforms with an incredible, his incredible athletic self. It just doesn't translate on the court into effectiveness and production. So the only thing that I'm worried about is that second game of that back-to-back, these two teams that we're going to see a bunch this season in the condensed schedule and the COVID schedule, really, where they're trying to keep teams just playing the same team and obviously stop that contamination and spread as much as they can. But I'm gonna stay away from it. I really am. If anything, I like your adding, either teasing that down or just taking the money line with the Jazz and then parlaying that, with the Lakers if you feel good about that game, where, obviously in that situation, in that parlay, you just need both teams to win in order to win your bet. You can still get some, around +200 on your money. But yeah, all things trend towards that way, especially the way that the Pellies don't guard threes and the Jazz have been shooting threes lately. But I am personally staying away from it. One game that I'm not going to stay away from, I'm actually looking to parlay this game, is the Warriors game. They're coming off a blowout of the Spurs last night, and they're looking really good. Another one where you might say, a little bit of a let up after a big game against a division, or at least a conference opponent who they have a history with in the Spurs, that being the Warriors. But the Knicks do this. They come in, they spoil, they make things weird, they chop it up. The total on this game is 216.5, because that's what everybody is expecting, is a choppy game. And the Warriors have shown that when Draymond Green plays defense at a high level, they're good on defense. Plain and simple. That's what the numbers say this year. I'm a little bit worried about the old man, I'll call him that, on the second leg of the back-to-back. But Steph puts it together. It's one of those things where the shooters on the second night of that back-to-back seem to just have the eye for the basket at that point, and the depth figured out. So I do like Steph. If you want to take some of his props, it's still pretty high, about 28.5 at DraftKings. But I would feel comfortable parlaying, and this is what I am going to do actually, is parlay the Warriors money line with the Lakers money line and get +200 on my money at DraftKings.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I would throw a caution about the under, since Alec Burks is going to be back for the Knicks, and that's something they've been badly missing offensively, is a guy who can create out of the backcourt. I would look at, Draymond kind of containing Julius Randle, maybe look at the under on some of his props, because as you mentioned, he's an incredibly crafty defender. He's held Randle about 17 points per game in their meetings. But yeah, that's how you approach a short slate. I think a lot of the times is try to find the two games you're most confident in, link them together either without the spread on the money line or tease them down so that there's just a negligible spread, and hope that they both come through for you. I definitely would keep the wagers small on that, because this is a pretty unpredictable season and teams can come out flat at any time. But tonight, the Lakers should not be flat. They should be motivated. The Jazz on a roll, and the Warriors, as you mentioned, they're finding it. They're usually good on the second half of back-to-back. If you put all three of those results together, you are getting +250 on your money, worth a small wager in case that can hit.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick just to say, I completely agree with it. I do like teasing. The other thing is, on short slates, at the end of the day, you want to win money. You want to put money where you feel confident that you're going to get some money back. And if you feel good about some of these games singularly, right? So you just like the Knicks Warriors game and you want to take the Warriors, but you don't love 5 points, you can simply buy points. You can simply buy 3 points, 4 points, what have you, get that spread down, and still find, maybe still around minus 180 for your money. Not quite 1-to-1, but at least, you're putting some money down on a small slate where you feel comfortable. And I think that's the most important thing, is finding where you feel most comfortable.
Yeah, good call. That's the alternate point spread you'll find on the sports books. Not necessarily necessary to tease a game. You can just change the odds you're getting on a particular game with a different spread. Right. And then just looking at the DFS angle tonight, I'm definitely thinking stack Lakers Bucks. It's got a much higher total than the other games. You can't really fit all the stars in there, but you can get good mid-tier value with guys like Brook Lopez, Drew Holiday, Dante DiVincenzo, Dennis Schroeder, and then get one at least of those stars in there. And then I like rounding it out with some really good mid-tier plays. Kelly Oubre is really underpriced as he's finally finding how to contribute for the Warriors. RJ Barrett, I think, has played the most minutes in the NBA, so that's a locked-in cash play for you. And James Wiseman coming off probably the strongest game of his rookie year. I don't feel weird about saying that. And he's going to see a lot of minutes against a really long Knicks team. I think you can trust him to be a nice minimum or close to it.
Yeah, and I love Jordan Clarkson. I love that you mentioned him. What I love most is obviously the numbers he's putting up recently. He's become the sixth man that also closes games, and that's what I love, because that means that they've really decided he honestly is their second offensive option at the end of games after Donovan Mitchell. He's probably jumped Mike Conley in that sense. I know Mike Conley still has a decent usage rate, but Jordan Clarkson's getting plenty of not just minutes off the bench, but also some starter minutes at key times.
Yeah, his production, at least from a fantasy perspective, is pretty much equal with Mitchell's because they're just trading off. And yeah, he's significantly cheaper on every site. So yeah, that's definitely something to look at for an advantage. And I hope you guys find the betting advantages tonight and enjoy this 3-game slate. If we are bringing you winners, please do like and subscribe. And we will see you Friday for a much bigger slate.
Happy betting.
Happy betting.